Hi there, so I'm going to start this video with a massive apology to anybody who has watched one of my HYROX rowing technique videos. Not that I've got anything wrong, don't worry, I've not been talking rubbish, but I've made that massive error of lumping you all into one pot and assuming everyone's the same. And you're not, are you? Everybody that sits down on this machine during the HYROX race approaches it in a different way. Some folks have the cardio is absolutely gassed, but their body's still strong. Some people have both completely gone, and some people are lucky enough to be strong and fit. So everybody's completely different, okay? So what I want to do today is explain really what that difference means in terms of your row, how to kind of deal with it, and also just a very quick guide on what the rowing technique should be when it comes to your training in the gym or the box, so you kind of have an okay technique that isn't going to fail too much by the time you sit on the HYROX race floor. Okay, so let's get on with it straight into a 30-second example on how you should row. The rowing stroke itself is exceptionally simple, all right? And this is all you have to do. So you come into the front of the machine with a forwards tilt and straight arms, push with the legs, swing with your back, pull in your arms at the back of the stroke, then out with your arms, rock forwards with your back, and then bend your knees to come into the front of the stroke again. That was shorter than 30 seconds. So if I just kind of go in a run, you just go legs, body, arms, arms, body, legs, legs, body, arms, arms, body, legs. And that is the rowing stroke, okay? It's exceptionally simple. There's nothing really that complicated to it. However, there's one thing I want you to bear in mind, just one thing every time you're rowing, okay? You can think about the sequence I just told you, that would be amazing, but there's one thing that you really have to bear in mind, and this is what I see as the kind of the collapsing point when I watch a lot of HYROX races. And I use the word collapse for a reason, because we're talking about posture here, okay? I'll explain why this is important in a sec, don't worry, I'm not just giving you a lecture, but what I see most often is people rowing, in fact, I'll pick up the handle, is people rowing like this, okay? So the tailbone is tucked underneath them, hips are pointing backwards throughout the entire stroke, which means that the back is leaning backwards throughout the entire stroke. And what this does is it completely disengages the power from the legs up through the body into the arms and into the handle, okay? So when it comes to trying to push with the legs, that power is just not getting into the machine. So you're effectively wasting leg power because you're leaning back with that poor posture. What do I want you to do? Well, I'm sitting like this. I want you to sit up onto your sit bones, and that's it. So now my hips are pointing forwards, and I've got a forwards tilt into the front of the machine. My tailbone is no longer tucked underneath me, and now as I come into the front and push with my legs, the power from my legs goes up through my posterior chain, into my arms, into the handle, and into the machine. Boof, okay? And then that's when you're able to swing over your back to add in power and then finish with the pull at the back. And don't underestimate the power you could generate just by swinging your back when it's connected, unlike Mr. Kent here. Because this is a clip from another video I made where I'm rowing just with my backswing. Why would you ignore that kind of simple extra speed? 155 splits. So why am I banging on about posture? Because no matter what camp you're in, okay, whether you've got strong legs, weak legs, lots of cardio, no cardio, both, none, whatever, the most important thing you can do when you sit down on the machine is to connect your legs up through your body and into your arms, okay? How much you then push with your legs, that's when it then depends what you're like, okay? So if you're absolutely gassed after all the runs you've done so far, you've just come off the burpees and you're like, my legs are absolute toast, that's perfectly fine, okay? I don't want you to panic about having to push really hard with the legs. All I want you to do is connect your legs to the handle, okay? So really that just means you come into the front with that good posture and you just connect. And what you'll feel is that your back and your arms, as long as you keep those arms straight, will brace against the stroke, okay? You're taking up the power of the stroke, and then you can add in that backswing to add in more power, and then you can pull in with your arms, but you can still go nice and light with the legs at the front because you've connected, and therefore the rest of your body is able to put in that power into the machine. And so this is a good time to say, actually, that I employ these techniques because, frankly, in the world of HYROX, I suck. The only thing that I show any aptitude towards is the row. And after everything that's coming up to it, and then those burpees, I don't even show much aptitude towards the row either. And a good way to explain this is that if I was to do a 1 kilometer time trial right now, I guess I'd be running about 3 minutes 10, which is what, 1 minute 35 pace. Whereas when I sit down on the rowing machine in HYROX, I'm so bust that I kind of sit down, run about 1:58 pace and then gradually increase. But the fact is I can hit that 1:58 pace quite comfortably and let my body recover because I'm thinking about connecting my legs into my back, okay? And then using my arms. So I'm using like the entire possibility of power generation that my body has, but then I'm kind of evening it out in order to be able to put in the power to row at a pace that I'm happy with and let myself recover. So it's not about not using my legs and then just using my arms and completely blowing up my upper body. It's about being sensible and knowing my body. And so this is kind of part of what I'm saying here is that depending on how strong and fit you are as you sit down in the rowing machine, that then becomes how much you use your legs. But you still have to make sure and connect those legs to your back in order to get that power through and to not be wasting power. So I'm going to do an example which I hope is going to work. The reason I'm wearing a hoodie today is to try and make this work, but I don't know if it will. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the hood over my head and I'm going to close my eyes. Don't worry, I'm not going to cheat. Okay? And then I'm going to row. First, what should I go? I'll go with the bad posture first, okay? So if I'm all rolled in, and trust me, this is how I see lots of people rowing on the HYROX race floor. Okay, so this is me rowing. And then what I'm going to do is with the same kind of perceived push from my legs and the same stroke rate, I'm going to get up into that beta posture. So here we go. So beta posture. And now I have absolutely no way of knowing whether I'm going any faster or not here. I promise you my eyes are closed. I'm feeling like I'm pushing in the same amount. Okay? And that should hopefully on screen, that could completely fall apart in the edit suite, couldn't it? Hopefully on screen that showed, even if it's only a few seconds, like 3 or 4 seconds faster I was going when I improved my posture, it shows the importance of just getting into that good posture and allowing your legs to connect to create that kind of bracing tension into the machine to get the power in. So what does this actually mean? Right, so if you are the kind of person who's absolutely gassed after all of that running, then you sit down and all I want you to do is get into a good posture. And that's the most important part, is a good posture. And then just connect your legs. You don't have to push hard, because if you can't, you can't. And no one's going to tell you that you have to push hard, okay? So just get into that forward tilt, straight arms, good posture, and just connect your legs to the arms or whatever. And then if you can swing your back and pull in your arms, fine. And what you're going to find is that over the course of the 4 or 5 minutes it's going to take for you to do the 1K row, your legs are going to recover, okay? Your legs are amazing at recovery. And after a couple of minutes, you're probably going to find, you know what, I can put in a bit more of a push here, either to help you go faster or to take off the amount of arm pulling you're having to do in the backswing you're having to do. Bearing in mind, in a few more minutes, you've got the farmer's carry to come, so you don't want to completely gas out your arms and then not be able to hold some kettlebells, all right? So you then pace it that way and think, right, can I put in more power for my legs? It's entirely up to you, okay? Anybody that says to you, you have to push with your legs at full force, then they're wrong. Anybody that says to you that you have to prioritize your upper body, they're wrong too, because you're all different, okay? This is the point that I'm trying to make, is that everyone's different. You have to kind of sit down and say what's right with you. So how strong you are as you sit down on the machine is how much of that leg push that you can put into the machine. So whether you're absolutely gassed and you sit down and you're like, all I can do is put down a little bit of a push on my legs just to make sure I can recover, to then someone who has a bit more strength, who can then push a little harder, they then go a little bit faster still, and then you get the people who sit down and they're strong and fit, and they know that they can really push into the machine. I doubt it, but there might also be the person who's going to sit down and think that they're going to do a 1 kilometer time trial, and they're the ones that push really hard with the legs. And so I'm kind of hoping that demonstration shows that the 4 different stages I went through there, from a very light row all the way through the same stroke rate up until that last one, which is about pushing really hard with my legs, That's what it's down to, is the amount of power you're going to put in depending on how fit and fresh you are as you sit down on the row for your race. And this has always been my point when it comes to rowing in HYROX. I'm not trying to turn you into rowers, I just want to make sure that no matter how you approach the row, you don't want to waste power and get more tired than you really should for the amount of effort you're putting in. And if you have bad posture and you're not at least connecting those feet to the hands, then you're losing free power. Whether you're taking stock of your race and taking the row easy to allow for a bit of recovery, or whether you're trying to go for a world record, you just never want to waste available power. So that's really what I'm always banging on about when it comes to technique, is that ideally you want to make sure that you do have that sequencing right of legs, body, arms, body, legs. But I know that can fall apart. So the next thing to think about, if you're like, oh, my sequencing's gone, is just then thinking about posture and untucking that tailbone, okay? Sitting up on your sit bones, and that way at least you can get the power into the machine, and if everything else fails, okay? There's one last thing I want to talk about before I let you all go on your way, okay? When you start your sled pull, do you walk up to the rope when it's lying on the ground and then just yank it and start pulling on it? No, you don't. You pick it up, you take up the tension, so you now have a straight line of the rope, and then you put in the power. And it's the same with the rowing handle, okay? So I see this technique so much on the race floor, okay? So handle comes right down at the bottom, and then the hands fly up at the front and pull. Talking to you, Martin Boyce. And this is exactly what I'm talking about with the sled pull, is people that start the stroke with the handle down low and then do this jerking up to the top. It's just not connecting, okay? What you want is a straight line of power. You would not do that with a sled pull, and I don't want you to do it with the rowing machine either. So as you come into the front, you know how you can see there's two kind of nuts, two holes, nuts at the front of the machine? Try and visualize sending the chain in and out to that top nut, that top hole. Okay, doesn't matter if you're a little bit above or a little bit below, but if you can try and think about it always being in that plane, so you're straight forwards, straight back out again, then that straight line of power means that you're able to surge it all in instead of it being that jerk, okay? So if you don't believe me, tell you what, next time you're doing training, try and pull the sled without picking up the rope and having a straight line first, and tell me how you get on. Okay, so that is my rant, okay? So for everybody who's out there, you're all different, and really what it comes down to is that if you can get into the right position with posture, and if you can think about the right sequencing of legs, body, arms, then all it comes down to is how much of a leg push you want to put in there. Don't let anybody else tell you that you have to push really hard. Don't let anybody else tell you that you have to pull really hard. Do what your body is asking you to do, and you will get through your 1K a lot happier and a lot faster than otherwise. All right, thank you so much for watching this video. I'll see you in a future one. Until then, take care, be well, race well. Bye-bye.